Hey, have you heard about Anchor? It's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that let you record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, just like I'm doing now. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so you can hear it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. And it's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome to Journey to Esquire, the podcast. I'm Jocelyn Hardrick, founder and president of Diversity Access Pipeline, Inc., the company behind this podcast and other great programs, like Journey to Esquire Scholarship and Leadership Program, which provides $2,000 cash scholarships to third-year law students and internships to second-year law students, along with leadership training and mentors. And Journey to Esquire, the blog, which provides insightful articles to help navigate you through law school and beyond. Find out more on our website, www.journeytoesquire.com. Hi, it's Jocelyn Hardrick. Welcome to another episode of Journey to Esquire, the podcast. I am your host. I'm the president and founder of Diversity Access Pipeline, Inc., the nonprofit behind this podcast and our other great programs like Journey to Esquire Scholarship and Leadership Program and Journey to Esquire, the blog. Today, we pass the mic to Jamila S. Little. Miss Little is an attorney licensed to practice law in Florida and in the Caribbean. Her practice areas include immigration, criminal defense, personal injury, and business law. She continues to represent her clients in state court and federal immigration court as an immigration attorney in the Tampa Bay area. She hails from the beautiful Twin Isle of Trinidad and Tobago, and Jamila graduated with honors from Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia, where she majored in economics and minored in business administration. She received her master's in business administration with a concentration in finance from Clark Atlanta University School of Business, and she worked in banking and finance for several years prior to becoming an attorney. She received her Juris Doctorate from Florida International University College of Law in Miami, Florida. When in law school, Jamila served as a certified legal intern with Miami-Dade Public Defender's Office in the felony division and with the Florida International University Immigration and Human Rights Clinic. She was also a member of the Florida International University Board of Advocates and a law school ambassador. And as a Florida Bar Fellow, Jamila worked at Catholic Charities Legal Services in Miami, Florida, where she assisted with several immigration cases. And this is another episode in our series of board member interviews. Welcome, Jamila.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us and making time. So let's talk about your journey to Esquire. Why did you decide to become a lawyer?
I think from a young age, people say, you like to argue or whatever. But for some reason, it was always a desire in my heart to actually be an attorney. I remember, so I'm originally from Trinidad, and when I left home, I was working for a bank at that point in time. And I remember my manager asking me, well, what do you want to do? You're going to go to school. What do you want to do? And I said, I think I want to do international business law. And that just kind of stuck with me. It really was a long journey for me because my intention was really to do a dual JD MBA program, but I ended up doing them separately. Even after I had graduated with my master's and I was actually working in finance, the thought of going to law school was still in the back of my mind. And so even after working in finance for several years, I still decided to pursue my dream. And here I am today.
Awesome. So what was the law school application like? You already got your BA, you already got your MBA, and you're working full time and looking at going to law school. What was that process like?
Yeah, so I actually had a client who came into my office one day, and he was an attorney, and he strongly encouraged me, and I would talk to him about doing it, maybe not doing it, and he strongly encouraged me to pushed through, even though I was working full time and then trying to study for the LSAT. So for me, it was a bit of a grueling process. I had some other things working in the background because I was an international student. I needed to find a school that would accept me as an international student and provide me an F1 visa. So I had some extra things working in the background, but I did have that client who showed me different avenues that I could go towards, how to select schools. And honestly, I'll be honest, the school that I chose, I ended up going to FIU, which is an amazing school. I think I got a really excellent law school education at FIU, and it shows in the bar results every year. But one of the big factors was I didn't want to be somewhere cold. So a lot of the other schools that I got into were up north, and I wanted to be somewhere that was warm. FIU had a really good program, and so through the entire process, the selection process, I got to visit FIU. I really liked the administration there, and they were open and welcoming to international students. So that's one of the reasons why I chose FIU. But it did turn out really great. I did have a really good law school experience and really good education.
Yeah, I mean, international is in its name. So I'm like, that's, I think one of the...
you would think they would be welcoming, and they were very welcoming to international students. There are a lot of international students on campus, not necessarily in law school, but throughout the entire campus.
Yes, and I know FIU and FAMU kind of started their law schools around the same time as a way to diversify legal education in Florida. And it's in South Florida, so everyone kind of knows what you mean by warm weather. So it sounds like you really enjoyed law school. They do, like year after year for the last few years, they're at the top of the bar passage rate. So that's a great accomplishment for a pretty new school in Florida. Talk to us about why you enjoyed law school so much.
Yeah, I did enjoy law school. I think like everything else, it had its challenging times. For me, the biggest change, I think, for me was I didn't come from, a legal background. I'm the first attorney in my family. And so just the whole process of changing the way that I thought because I had a really strong business background, a strong finance background that didn't necessarily lend itself towards a law degree. But I did have like really good support teachers. I had a good support system. The professors that were there were really very supportive. I think that they made time, office hours, they made the time to actually help students who needed assistance or extra assistance. And one of the big things I enjoyed about my law school experience is the diverse experience that I got, right? So I was able to do clinics because as a law student, and like I said, I had no, besides my client who would give me advice on law school, I had no one else to kind of look up to. My parents weren't attorneys. I didn't know a lot of attorneys at that point in time. So just being able to get the experience and kind of figuring out where I want to be was something that was really important to me. So I got to work for the PDs. I got to work for nonprofits that did immigration. And those were like two areas that I was really thinking about going into. I had the experience working for banks before. And so the commercial litigation side was something that I thought about as well, and actually ended up going into once I came out of law school. But I was really glad to have that diverse experience throughout law school to kind of help me decide where I wanted to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big questions law students have, like, how do I decide what area of law? I just thought I'd be a lawyer, and then they realize there's all these different types of lawyers.
Yeah.
So you hinted about you ended up in kind of like a corporate setting after law school. Can you talk a little bit about your job search and what that process was like?
Yeah, so I graduated in 2012, and at that point in time, there was no jobs. I think I graduated I entered law school, I think just as there was the 2008, 2009 recession, the markets had crashed basically for the second time. And then even after I graduated in 2012, it hadn't fully recovered. And so there weren't a whole lot of jobs out there. I was fortunate enough after searching for several months. It did take, I think, at least 4 to 6 months before I actually got a full-time position in a firm to actually, get a firm job. It ended up being one of my colleagues, and that was a lesson that I learned, that when you're in school, you're actually networking. The people that you see and talk to, your classmates, the people that you meet every day, they're going to be the attorneys that you see when you come out of law school. They're going to be the ones who end up being opposing counsel. And in this case, it was one of my colleagues who sent a message over to me saying that his firm was hiring, and I ended up getting hired because he put a good word in, kind of, and I didn't even know that he was part of the search process for new attorneys, but they had him there. And so because of him, I was able to learn of that opportunity and get hired on at that firm.
Nice. Yeah, I try to tell that to students, like, who's their study group? Who are the people you hang out with? And they're looking at me like, hang out? I'm like, oh boy, what groups are you in? They're like, I don't want to do all that. I'm like, listen, you are networking starting now. These are the future judges, future partners at the firms, future hiring managers.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
That's an important lesson to learn early, really early.
Yeah. So you were doing that corporate work, but now you're doing immigration, some personal injury. How did you ultimately end up choosing your area of practice?
Okay, so while I was working in the firm I was at, commercial litigation, I would still do pro bono immigration cases. So I was working, but I was still taking on a couple pro bono cases, and they were immigration cases. And honestly, that's where my heart was. That's what I really, really enjoyed doing. I found even after I did the clinic at FIU while I was in law school, and got to represent a couple clients as a CLI student, I really enjoyed it. I felt, when I was doing commercial litigation, I felt really disconnected from clients. The firm I worked with had, it was a lot of big clients, it was banks. So there wasn't really that personal interaction. I think for some people, I think it's maybe like a personality choice decision. And for me, I really miss that interaction with people, helping real people. And as an immigrant myself, and having gone through the immigration process, it's just something that's really near to my heart, right? And I like to see the tangible effect that I'm having in people's lives because of what I'm doing. So I stayed, and I was actually in Miami at that point in time. I wanted to relocate to Tampa. And so I made a decision to move out of Miami and start my own practice in Tampa by way of one of the law schools. I actually worked for a short time for one of the law schools in the area, and then decided to open my own practice doing immigration primarily, also criminal defense and personal injury.
Nice. So I just want to translate a couple of things, because you said CLI, so that's Certified Legal Intern. Correct. So when you're a law student, you can be certified to represent actual clients as long as you're supervised by a licensed attorney.
Yeah, and that's one of the best ways that as a law student, you could actually get experience and see if this is something that I want to do. So myself and another, she's an attorney now, of course, but she and I worked for Catholic Legal Charities, and we took clients. Our professor would sit in the back of the court and have us up, pretty much handling the case, which is an amazing opportunity, I think, for a law student. And then also at the PD's office, when I interned with the PD, it was pretty much the same, same thing. We were speaking on the record as a CLI. So I would definitely encourage any students who might be looking at this, that if you have the opportunity to get your CLI and get in court and actually deal with real clients, do it, because it'll give you the opportunity to see if that's what you really want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I did that too. So I was with the state attorney's office in Tampa. So I always say that's the best, because I handled the cases too. They were like, you want to do a trial? Here you go. I was like, oh,
we'll be here.
I know. That's what happened.
Here.
Yeah, I did 11 trials. I haven't done that many trials in the 10 years of practice. So it's just crazy. So that's a good transition to what is your advice for new and future law students?
Yeah, I would say, we kind of trickled into little pieces of advice along the way. I would say that be mindful of who you have around in terms of your study groups, your classmates, because they can be really, really helpful for you in terms of networking once you actually come out of law school. I would say also I'm a big advocate of mentorship. So and this is something that I learned after the fact, right? I mentioned when I was coming into law school, I had a client who kind of helped me along the way, but I didn't really have a lot of people around me who were attorneys. So find yourself in groups. If you might be thinking about coming to law school, or if you're a 1L, find yourself in groups that would allow you to meet people who have walked where you're just now walking. So as a law student, you can join bar associations, you can join inns of courts, and you can get to know people who would be able to assist you along the way and just guide you. And also, I would say, as far as getting the experience in terms of choosing what area of law you want to practice in, we spoke about being a CLI or doing clinics, just even talking to your professors about what you might be interested in so that you can hit the ground running and you decide before, right? So maybe your last semester, your last year, you might just want to focus in on property or getting a job in a firm that does family law because that's what you want to do. So lay that foundation, do the work before, and I think you'll set yourself up for success.
That's awesome advice. So now let's go to, why are you on this board? So you've been involved with Journey to Esquire since we had the pilot program back in, what was it, 2019?
Yeah.
So since the very beginning, when we first did the little interviews and we didn't know who was going to show up or anyone was going to show up. So talk to us about why you decided to join the board.
Yeah, I remember when Jocelyn, you had asked me about doing interviews, just coming to interview the students. And so I feel like that was a little hook, because I came and I interviewed some of these students, got to know them, got to take a look at the ones that did presentations and video presentations and learn their stories. And I guess it just kind of tugged at my heart that we really need to create an outlet or an opportunity for diverse students who may not have those opportunities otherwise. And so that's something that I certainly could be committed to, and I am committed to, because obviously I am a minority. And it's something that I feel like we're responsible, right? So we stand on the shoulders of those people who went before us. And I think it's our responsibility to really help those who come behind us to provide whatever opportunities we never had, just so that they can have the experiences that we maybe never had. And I think also because of my experience, as I mentioned before, I had worked for one of the law schools in the Bay Area. And because of my experience there with students, I call them kids. I know they're not kids, but because of my experience with students and really advising them in terms of where they want to go, how they want to get this job, how they want to prepare, I feel like that just kind of opened the door for me to see the need even so much more here in the Bay Area to have these students have a voice and have advocates for them that will really help them to get to where they should be. So.
Yes, and we love having you and appreciate you and love your story. And The students you've mentored absolutely love you, have nothing but good things to say, and enjoy your presentations and your advice because you have such great experience. And I'm so proud to be surrounded by such smart women. Every time I do one of these interviews, I'm like, oh man, you guys are so awesome. I almost forgot how awesome. But I want to thank you so much.
Awesome job as our fearless leader. So we definitely appreciate you, you know.
Oh,
it's a lot of
you.
work. It is a lot of work, but it's so rewarding to see when they come out. I'll say this, you know, I'm not going to call any names, but I had a case recently, and one of the students who graduated from the program was the prosecutor. Yeah, so she was the state attorney on the other side. And it was so surreal to call her up and to be able to discuss the case with her. And obviously she knew who I was and I knew who she was and we knew how we met. But just to kind of see her transition from the program into this world of law, and to be an attorney and pretty much a peer, and for us to be able to talk about the legal aspects of this case in a way that would be beneficial for my client, but also in a way that's fair, you know, and that really, really was just so surreal for me. So we see the tangible benefits of the program and we see the results when these students come out and even when they say, okay, I want to come back and I want to help or I want to join, you know, you kind of see the need for it and you see why, okay, this is why I do this. So
yeah, that's awesome. I had a student from the pilot program. She was a moderator on a panel I was on, and I was just so proud. I
know.
I feel like a proud parent. Like, oh my gosh.
Yes, exactly.
Look at you being awesome. And of course, we have one of the students, Brielle,
yes,
who is now on the board. Yeah, I mean, we are seeing results right away. Yeah. Right away. And they're awesome when they come to us, but they just blossom so much more, I think, because of their experience. So thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you for having me.
All righty. Well, thanks for listening to Journey to Esquire. Like, share, subscribe, and for more, visit www.journeytoesquire.com. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another great episode of Journey to Esquire, the podcast. Support, share, subscribe. And for more, visit www.journeytoesquire.com.